Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and even more so a baseball podcast. I'm Kevin McCaffrey. There's Adam Mamawala. How are you, Adam?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. What a game. What a week, a couple weeks of games. My gosh.
Yeah, the World Baseball Classic finished up last night, so even though there's not like a ton of Cubs stuff to talk about, we thought it would be good to hop back on here. And if you want to follow what we're saying about things like the World Baseball Classic or any Cubs sort of things, follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter. Also, give us a rating and a review if you don't mind. Why not? It's been a bit. So, yeah, yesterday's final. I mean, we haven't been on in a week, and the final ended up between, I think, the two best teams, and the final ended up between the two very best players in the world at the very end, which is pretty badass, USA and Japan.
Yeah, I mean we're kind of starting at the end here, but going into the final game, I think the only or the main thing on everyone's mind was like if there is some sort of situation where it is Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout at all, but especially in a crucial moment, how cool would that be? And that's exactly what we got. And I mean, the fact that that ended up being the last out, like if somebody is writing a script for that game, that is exactly how that game ends.
Yeah,
Unless
and
you script it as, Americans winning, but they don't always win.
they don't always win, and they didn't win, and they played really well. The Americans lost, I think, only one game leading up to the final, and I feel like I saw a decent amount of online discourse about the Americans don't really care as much or want it. I think that's kind of bullshit. Like, I think if you pay attention to what these players actually said, there may be obviously so like in Japan, over 50 million people watched each of the last several games, which is like a number that we haven't put up in America for a World Series game since 1980, I think is the stat on that.
Right.
And so yeah, there's in terms of the national attention to it, it doesn't compare. But I do think maybe some of the American players have been shortchanged about it because they all really wanted to be there, really gave a shit. I mean, all you had to do was see how they acted, see how they celebrated, and then listen to what they said. Tim Anderson said this is his World Series. For now, Mike Trout says he's never had a more fun 10 days. I think Mookie Betts was saying he wanted to do this every year. I think like the American team really cared about this, and I mean, obviously Japan did too, and so did Mexico, and I think what we see is just like the players on all these teams really love being here in the World Baseball Classic.
Right. Yeah, and you would think for someone like a Mike Trout, maybe he feels that way because of the fact that he's really not been able to play in meaningful games. Like the guy's only played in 3 playoff games. They lost all of them. This was
Right.
almost a decade ago. But even then, you hear Trey Turner talking about what it means to him, and the guy won a World Series and has played in very meaningful games. So
Yeah.
I think there's a couple elements that partially there's like the national pride that is involved, but there's also like you're basically on an all-star team for 2 weeks. And I
hmm
think the vibe that you get from guys at the all-star game is that they're so happy to be around people who are at their level, peers that they respect, and this is just a lengthened version of that, which I think is part of what makes it so cool. I don't know if you've ever, I assume you've never gone, you haven't been to a World Baseball Classic, have you?
No, I've been to the only international event I've been to is the Caribbean World Series in
Yeah.
2014 or
Mhm.
2015, I think. But yeah,
Yeah, I got to tell you, after I feel like I watched more of this one than in previous years, but I would love to go. I feel like that's kind of at this point a baseball bucket list thing for me because the tickets weren't that expensive. Like I was just out of curiosity, I was looking, and even for the final, I think you could get in for like $130. So
hmm yeah.
I
God, I
mean,
went to a New
the
York
most
Rangers
packed
game.
Marlins Park will be all year.
Exactly, I went to a Rangers game for a regular season for 140 last night. For Christ's sake,
The
it's like
the Garden is just. I mean, at least the Knicks are pretty good this year. I don't know. Are the Rangers good?
yeah, the
Yeah.
Rangers are very good.
But even when they're bad, you can't get in for less than $100.
No, it just needs to be bigger. Like it was a sellout of 18,000 people, and we just have too many people. We just got to expand the garden a little bit,
Right.
because yeah, it's bonkers. Like and
Well, the Garden is such a funny thing because for anyone who hasn't been there, like Knicks and Rangers fans are terrific fans. There's no
yeah,
question about it. But because it's the Garden and because it's such a famous thing and because it's in Midtown, it'll be like a bunch of diehard Rangers fans and then like a family from Finland.
Mhm.
That's always this weird dynamic at MSG for anything you go to there, where you'll there are a lot of people who are clearly tourists who were told like you have to go to MSG for something.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I was sitting next to, I believe, some Swedes yesterday. So
Yeah.
very an exact replica almost of what you just said, Scandinavian at least. Yeah, I think I think another thing the players really like is beyond being with people who have their talent level, people who care about things the way the very best in the game care. I think just being around people who, who are taking what you're doing seriously at your level is also sort of a gift and a treat for these guys. Anyone who's won, not to say like most professional athletes are trying pretty hard all the time, but it's not the same as Trout and Ohtani playing with the Angels in August when it doesn't matter or
Right.
something. And Trout and Ohtani are because they're two freaks. Those are guys who are probably trying and caring the most at all times because they can't work any other way.
Hmm.
And the fact that, and that was another thing I was struck by, because as the game ended, it was a one-run game at the end, and Ohtani was pitching, came in relief to close, which he hadn't done in any scenario since 2016. He was throwing 102, and Mike Trout got to a full count and then swung and missed on a real frisbee slider at the end. And I was just struck by, like, that's the margin at the top of the world, is
Hmm.
it's a full count and it's missing by, is someone missing or someone getting it by, like, a
Right.
quarter of an inch. And that's the margin when you're legends going head to head.
Yeah, and that's I think it's likely to assume that Shohei and Mike Trout will not spend their entire careers being Angels the whole time.
Hmm.
I could be wrong, but I that's just a guess that I have. But that could have been the one time we get to see those guys face each other, and I think even if that's all we get, that is so incredibly cool. Now, the folks over at Barstool would tell you that none of it's worth it,
Uh-huh.
and that I think one particular guy at Barstool, I don't even know who that guy is,
Oh,
but he
I mean,
he
like,
was very upset.
it's not giving him publicity. It's just like there's a guy KFC Barstool who, I
Mhm.
mean, if that's just when that's your name and you're acting like you're above anything, it's just like
Well,
you're
they call him
admitting.
KFC Barstool because he just keeps he just likes to double down on his terrible opinions. So it's a KFC
Mhm.
joke.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, I don't, there's no need to like engage with people who clearly are doing a pro wrestling heel character, and that's so
Yeah.
many people. It's just like, it also strikes me, both that KFC fella and just even like Mike Francesa, who,
Mhm.
or excuse me, not Francesa, although him too a little bit, but Christopher Russo, Mad Dog specifically.
Mhm.
Um, your whole life is sports and you seem to not know about sports. Like, if you ever listen to Mad Dog talk, it's like, this guy, I mean, I know you don't have any other interests. How do you also not know baseball? And this KFC guy is like, yeah, I mean, it has 500,000 followers on Twitter because he's with the Barstool people. But like, just forget bad, just
Mhm.
dumb sports opinions. It's useless.
Well,
And
it's like Kendrick Perkins. There's a whole. I mean, so many of
right.
these people. Skip Bayless. Perkins is terrible. Perkins just got in some hot water because he was talking about how like there are never black MVPs. I think is what he said, which is like
In
provably
basketball,
false. Yeah, in
a lot
basketball.
a lot of problems racially in the country. I don't think not enough black NBA MVPs is one of them.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Shaq too. Shaq, I mean, the Inside the NBA crew is fantastic. Like it's one of the
totally.
more entertaining shows that exists in sports or anywhere. But like
Truly.
Shaq weirdly, almost like Jordan, still has this like chip on his shoulder for some reason about like thinking that he's better than everybody. So he'll do this thing a lot where I think he thinks it's like a flex to act like he doesn't know who someone is, but it's like it's literally your job to know who people are.
Yeah.
This is not a good look to be like, "Well, I don't know what a Rui Hachimura is." Like, well, you should
Yeah,
because he's
that's
in the
he's
NBA.
he's in the NBA. He plays quite a bit, and this is fully your job. Yeah, I think that's just a wider thing in America. Is just like, and
Right.
probably everywhere, but certainly America, where acting. Not knowing shit is not a
Hmm.
flex. It's not a brag
Hmm.
or a dunk on anyone or anything else to not know what it's about. That's a
Hmm.
self dunk, if anything. So.
Oh, my entire comedy career, I think, has been hindered by my desire to be responsible and professional.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, it
If
doesn't.
I had
It
been late to more things, I would be much more successful.
yes, yeah. So, also, in terms of the final game, of course, Kyle Schwarber hit a bomb because it was a game that mattered, and someone posted this stat, and Schwarber has homered in both the AL and NL wild card,
Hmm.
AL and NL DS, AL and NL CS, and the World Series, which I no one
And
else
he
has
should
ever
have homered in
done.
the Cubs World Series. There was a ball
Hmm.
he hit off the top of the wall that like would have gone out any other night, but it was one of those first two games in Cleveland where it was like 35 degrees.
Yeah, when it like you could see the ball imprint in the
Hmm.
in the padding over there, and yeah, Schwarber just continues to be a real big game. I mean, a big game player, and not to belabor the point, but when the people running your organization are still the people who he homered off Yu Darvish yesterday. Yu
Hmm.
Darvish, who was still one of the best pitchers in the world, and in Japan, pitching in their most important game. And we had these two great players that were good enough to be in this situation
Hmm.
for their nation's most important games, and the Cubs got rid of them both in the same season to save money after winning a division. They were both, the Kyle Schwarber was cut, and that's not just not signing a guy. The Cubs could have just renewed the contract at 10 million and even traded him. They chose not to. They chose to save $2 million or so and go sign Jack Peterson as a replacement, and then traded Yu Darvish, obviously, for four players, one of whom is in the Cubs' top 10 or 15 prospects at this point, uh, several years later. So, from a Cubs perspective, that remains an immensely frustrating thing because, I just don't think the people running this program are up for it.
Well, and it's also hard to watch the World Baseball Classic and not think to yourself, boy, it would have been nice for the Cubs to go out and sign Trey Turner, huh?
Yeah, and Trey Turner hit 5 homers in like a
Yeah.
in like a week. And the guy he Yeah, Trey Turner had a huge series. They also named the all-tournament team, and Javi Baez was the all-tournament second baseman. He hit 368 with a homer, bunch of RBIs, played his normal great defense. So, yeah, uh, Philadelphia's going to have again a really fun lineup this year. I mean, with Trey Turner at the
Yeah.
top, Bryce won't be back immediately; he's injured, but eventually Bryce Harper's coming back, and you got Schwarber and Castellanos and Real Muto. It's going to be nasty out there in Philadelphia.
Didn't they sign? I've lost track at this point, but who did the Phillies sign pitching wise? I feel like they picked a couple people up.
Who free agent? Well, I know Aaron Nola is going into the last year of his deal. Uh, let's see. Phillies
Yeah, what is
rotation.
the Phillies rotation? But that, I mean, that division again is going to be incredibly good.
Well, and that's also, and to your point about like would have been fun to sign Trey Turner. The Cubs did sign Dansby Swanson, but Trey Turner's the top of the market. That's the in that's in Swanson. I like and am hopeful for, and he might make
Hmm.
contact with the baseball sometime soon. He hasn't really in the spring yet. He's swinging and missing everything. But that's you want to be playing at the top of the market when you're signing these guys. When you're the Chicago Cubs, not aiming for like the 8th to 10th best guy at his position across the board kind of in free agency.
Right.
And because I saw as I think Obvious Shirts posted a Shohei in a Cubs jersey and being like, make it happen. And of course we agree with that. That would be if
Yeah,
you do
obviously.
if you do that, that is like, okay, now it's a turn to contention. But you don't do that without playing at the top of the market before he gets here. And that's
Hmm.
part of what's so depressing to me about how egregiously this organization has been run in the past couple years, is because you put yourself in a position to not pursue the most talented baseball player of all time when everything about your team's location and financial might and all that was in position to be considered a finalist the first time he came through.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, the Phillies rotation is. I guess they signed Taiwan Walker is the signing they did
Oh,
this
okay.
year. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taiwan Walker, and Bailey Falter.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the main thing that was being discussed about the World Baseball Classic was the injuries. One of which was something that happened just randomly with Edwin Diaz celebrating and tearing his, I think, patellar tendon.
Yeah.
So he's out for the year. And then cue the sad trumpets, and then
I actually think I have. There,
got drilled. Oh, you got that.
yes, there we go. It's a trombone, but yeah.
It's not funny. I mean, it's terrible. And as someone who I think you hate the Mets more than I do, it's super fun, like going to games and having him come in and
Yeah.
having that, Timmy trumpets on the ones and twos. But I guess our boy David Robertson is going to be the closer there for now.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
And you figure the Mets could make a deal for, a shutdown reliever at some point in the middle of the year. And Diaz is expected to miss the year now, but you never know. He could
Schwarber it.
Yeah, he could Schwarber it. He could maybe be back by September if everything kind of goes perfectly, and you assume the Mets will still be very much in contention in September, even though that division's a beast, but those top three teams should, all be expecting to make the playoffs.
I mean, the Mets are in a position where they could be in a lot of games that they don't even need to have a closer for because they're that good. But I do think the most Mets thing possible would be Diaz returns dramatically in the World Series. They play the trumpets. He comes in and just gets shelled.
Shelled or injured on the first pitch or something. I do think now, I mean, the Diaz injury in the WBC, which could have happened anywhere. Ask Gavin Lux if injuries can happen in spring training, because he's out for the year too, off a spring training injury, and the Dodgers were really planning for him to take over shortstop this year, so that does affect them. But yeah, I think that injury has pushed it to like, okay, the Mets fans have really pitied themselves for, I mean, since the beginning of my awareness, really. But even when they would try to be sympathetic, before the Cubs had won the World Series, I'm sure you experienced too, people being like, oh, you're a Cubs fan? I get it. I'm a Mets fan. No, you don't get it. 1986 is very different from 1908.
Yeah.
Your dad, people who saw a championship. They were all dead for us. So that is different when it comes to culture. Now the Mets are about the most frustrating baseball culture it's getting there. I mean, obviously other teams have gone longer without winning. I love saying the Brewers have never won because they never have. They've won 0 times ever, infinity for forever. But yeah, it's
I guess the argument there is that you feel like if you haven't been alive for it, you're in the same boat, which I understand to a degree. Like I'm starting to feel that way when I talk about being a Bulls fan and people are like, oh, you have nothing to complain about. Like you had the 90s, like that. It's a pretty long time ago. Like I don't disagree. And I know that especially for me, I was alive for it. I got to at least enjoy the second three-peat, but 1996 is 27 years ago.
Yeah, it's a very
25 years ago. It's been wow. Yeah, this June will be 25 years since the Jordan shot over Russell.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There'll be a lot of replays of that on the quarter century anniversary. Yeah. I think when it comes down to tiebreaker, if you're complaining from a franchise perspective, you can be like, okay, what's the next level of person who's seen anything happen? But yeah.
Well, actually, the better comparison is the Bears. Like as Bears fans, we feel very frustrated, but people could be like, well, they won in '85. It's like, yeah, but I wasn't alive. You were barely alive.
Yeah, I mean, so that puts the Bears ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I guess,
sure.
But a lot of teams have won since then. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are there any other World Baseball Classic thoughts on the end? Team Mexico in the semifinal. Japan ended up walking it off against Mexico, who had been leading the whole game up until that point.
That was really, really fun. That might have been the game of the tournament, I think, because it was a very interesting game where you have those 2 3-run homers that kind of happen the same way, where it's like it starts very quietly. There's a couple bloops. There's a walk involved, and then all of a sudden it's 3-0. Then all of a sudden the game is tied. But for Mexico to go up the way they did, and for Japan just never seemed fazed by any of it. Like they always kind of seemed like they were in the driver's seat, even when they probably shouldn't have felt that way. Arena's out there signing autographs in left field. I'm all for it. I thought that was fun.
I thought it was great. I mean, this is the kind of thing when you talk about making baseball appealing to fans. It's like letting letting the players show some personality. And that is a thing that I think is a fair criticism of American baseball culture
Right.
is the like put your head down and act like you done it before and never,
Mhm.
like don't show off, don't ever look like you're having fun. Like
Yeah.
Rosarena, he robbed a home run and then just stared down the whole stadium for like a full
Yeah.
minute, like he was Michael Jackson at the top of the Rose Bowl during the Super Bowl, where it's just like, is he frozen? What happened? Is my TV okay? Just like slapping the box.
Yeah.
It was great. Like Rosarena had a real like star turn in this, and that's a guy who obviously likes the big stage,
Hmm.
because he's also been really good in the playoffs. Like we've seen, and you see certain players really sort of need this level of intensity to get to their best, and it's really
I think
cool.
my favorite thing is when people use the like act like you've been there before thing,
Mm.
but it's about a situation where the person hasn't been there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like Randy Rosarena has not been there.
No, this is new.
I get the meaning of the statement, but like you're allowed to be really excited. Frankly, even if you've played in every World Baseball Classic, you're still allowed to be excited. What I would imagine though must be tough is like you're going from that intensity and now these guys are going to go back to
Yeah.
spring training for a couple days. Like that must, I want to be clear that I'm not comparing anything that I do to anything that resembles a World Baseball Classic, but like I would think that that would feel like I just got back from a run of shows in Colorado where I was like headlining. They were great shows. And then this past week, I did like a bar show for 6 people in the bottom of a pizza place, and I was like, "Oh, right,
Uh-huh.
this is still here too."
In Bushwick?
Oh yeah,
I know that
artichoke
show.
baby.
Yeah, I've done that show. Yeah, yeah, it's very funny. I remember literally after I did Letterman, the next show I did
Hilarious.
was at the Chicago Beat Kitchen because it was right around Thanksgiving,
Mhm.
and I went home and we had and I had Letterman promote that show, like mention it, and there was like 18 people there, and it's just like okay, yeah, I mean back to business, I guess. This is spring
Yeah,
training. And that was, yeah, I think no one who played in the World Baseball Classic should even have to take an at bat in spring training now. Like
I
they've
agree.
gotten their swings in. Fuck it. Let them chill until it's opening day. And then
Yeah.
that's like, okay, it's baseball again. It's
Mhm.
real. Because we're in the final week and Adam and I are gonna we're gonna be joined by our friend Ken Schultz, as is our annual tradition to do a Cubs
Mhm.
season preview. And we're recording that this Saturday, I think. So it might drop a little earlier than usual. But in Cubs world, it's like we're getting close to the roster is almost shaped up, but also there's like, it's not a scenario where like, oh, is super prospect Chris Bryant going to open the
Right.
year with the team? Our drama at this point is like, are they going to start Morel in AAA? I don't want them
Mhm.
to, but it seems like there's a good chance they will. Keegan Thompson's velocity's down. I mean, there's just not super
Right.
exciting things to talk about.
Wisniewski looks
Wisniewski
great.
looks great. Wisniewski looks great. Javier Assad was pitching with Team Mexico and looked absolutely amazing. So it will be interesting to see what the Cubs do with Assad
Right.
coming, after he was just blowing guys away at like 97 in the World Baseball Classic. So there's a couple of questions like that, but there's we're pretty much set and ready to go here.
Yeah, I think the thing with spring training is you have to be fair with how you look at good and bad, meaning like just because Wisniewski's been nasty in spring training doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be nasty in April,
Hmm.
and just because, Bellinger and Swanson aren't hitting now doesn't mean they won't when the games actually matter. So you want to believe that the people who are good will stay good and the people who are struggling it's just because it's spring training. Of course that's not real life, but like
Hmm.
I think any sort of overreaction to anything in spring training other than an injury, which is of course a real thing. Um, so I still don't think there's been any specific news about Seiya. I feel like they're still suggesting that he wants to be back sooner than later, but like that's
Yeah, and it was interesting to see how Japan's team felt about Seiya because they brought his number 51 jersey out and were holding it up for the cameras like at the
oh they
championships.
pulled a an Eloy.
A little bit of an Eloy. Yeah, they did. They were holding it up, and then some people, I mean, Fox, I think it was Fox Sports, then deleted the tweet because a bunch of people corrected them. But they were like, "Oh, Team Japan is honoring Ichiro Suzuki, who did wear 51, but who also
Right,
wore
right, right,
Ichiro on his back, not Suzuki most of the
right.
time." And at least least there, and Seiya played with these guys. So it was Seiya's jersey they were doing this with. There's more than one Suzuki.
I could understand the mistake, but yeah.
I get it, but use a couple context clues. So they did. They deleted the tweet, whatever. But it was interesting to see that, like, Seiya is that, it was included to that degree by the championship winning team. So that's cool. I don't think there is any distinct news about Seiya yet. I think that's going to be a couple weeks into the season. So maybe that gives the Cubs a little runway. I just hate how much in recent times we're like, maybe it's a good thing because then they can not have to release the 26th man on a roster that might be the 9th best team in the National League. Just shouldn't give a shit about the 26th. I mean, we do because we're freaks, but it's like, it shouldn't be a blessing in disguise. It just shouldn't. If you're on the margin of this team, best of luck to you. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, who was the one final World Baseball Classic thought? Who was the pitcher, that young Japanese pitcher who pitched against Mexico? He's like 21 years old.
Roki Sasaki.
Absolutely... Oh my God.
Yeah, he might be. Like, in the way that Shohei Ohtani is the most talented pitcher in the world, Sasaki might be. Yeah. I mean, right there with. I mean, DeGrom's done it at a higher level, and there's other guys who have better pitching careers and stuff. But Sasaki was taking the mound at an age younger than I think anyone started a game in the major leagues last year. And he's got, several killer pitches, but he just sits like between 100 and 102. I saw like a longtime scout with an organization just said like he throws the best fastball you'll ever see in your life. I'm not exaggerating. So he's a real star, about as talented as they've ever made a pitcher.
I have to say too, and I realized that the way that he died was very much his own fault, but it's hard to watch games in Miami and not imagine an alternate reality in which Jose Fernandez is pitching for Cuba. Like, how electric would that place be?
Yeah. I mean, another one of the most fun and talented pitchers that we've seen too. And that would have been very, very cool. It's just seeing the way different fan bases come together and the way players play for their nations, I think has been a really cool thing. If you're not just trying to be a dipshit, I don't know how you don't enjoy it. If you don't, you don't like baseball. I don't know what you think you like. You like a particular American league. I guess I don't know, but this seems to be about as fun as the sport gets, and we mainly get that during the playoffs here. But yeah,
and I also think it'll be interesting to see how much of this translates into hot starts for some of the guys who played in the World Baseball Classic. Like, I think that also makes the case for why people should participate, because like, I know you're working on things in spring training, but when you're playing in games of this caliber this early, and then you head into a regular season, you have to think that has a positive effect, especially on like younger guys who get to be around veteran guys who are playing at that level. Like, they're talking about it on the compound a little bit in terms of some of the younger Cub dude like Jared Young and Matt Mervis, like people who got to participate, and just like what that was like to be around. Especially when you're playing for a country that does not have the depth of talent that a U.S. or Japan has, where they might, like, I think our buddy Rob Zastryzny actually pitched for Canada. So
Canada had a couple of Cub friends. Rob Zastryzny, friend of the show, who if you haven't heard, go deep in our archives. He talked to us for like an hour and told some great stories.
To date, one of my favorite, I think, interviews we've ever done.
He's great. He's just a fun guy, and it's great to see him still going. And he pitched for Team Canada, said it was, talked about how great an honor it was for him and how fun it was. And then also Jared Young, who's probably going to get some at-bats at the big league level. He's been a good hitter in the Cubs organization for a while. And Owen Casey, who's the top prospect who they got in the Yu Darvish trade, who is from Canada and hit a bomb in the World Baseball Classic. Hit a homer over there. Mervis was he was with Israel. So, yeah, I think it's especially cool for those prospects to get to play in games that are sort of as close to the majors as they've gotten so far, to be like, these are games that really matter, even if the talent level is not the level of, USA, Dominican, Puerto Rico, or Japan. I mean, this is high level intense stuff for them. So, Cool. Any parting thoughts here before we wrap?
I got nothing. Go drive a bunch of miles.
I'm gonna drive a bunch of miles. If you guys want to see me, if you happen to be around
Yeah, tell the people.
Nashville, I'll be at Nashville Zanies this Thursday. What is it, March 23rd? I'm going to be in Lowell, Arkansas. So in the northwest corner of Arkansas. If you've ever wanted to see me in Arkansas, guys, this is your weekend. And who knows if there will be another one. But I'm excited it should be good shows. I'm in Lowell, Arkansas this Friday and Saturday, March 24th and 25th. And a bunch of other places. Just follow me at Kevin McCaff on all the things. You'll find it. You have any fun things to point to coming up?
Yeah, I want to believe that there's like in that Venn diagram, there's like one person whose two main goals are like, I want to see Kevin McCaffrey live. I've also really wanted to go to Lowell, Arkansas, and this is
Yeah.
my moment.
I want to be within driving distance of Walmart's world headquarters. That's one of my dreams.
You know, I didn't know that, but if you had made me guess which company's headquarters were near there, I probably would have gone with Walmart.
Bentonville, baby. Yep.
I got some upstate stuff coming up with our old buddy Tom Dog. Shout out
Yes,
Tom Dog, who listens religiously every week, even though I don't think he's religious, but you understand what I'm saying.
Sure, but I did just do a show with him in a Lutheran church, and it was great.
There you go.
He had some
There you
really
go.
good, yeah. Like he was like,
He didn't burst into flames.
no, we didn't. He even like quoted scripture, I think, from the stage, and the pastor afterwards was like, "That was really deep," and got like it was like an amazing comedy compliment Tom got.
Cool.
It was great. But yeah, anyway.
But anyway, this coming Saturday, I'll be in Schenectady, New York, at a place called Proctor's Theater. I got a bunch of New York stuff coming up. The following weekend, I will be in that area as well. Glens Falls is the town. I think it's near like Saratoga Springs. Then Binghamton the next night, and then I'll be in Vegas in April. I think I'm only going to do one show there, but I'm going to host at Brad Garrett's, which I'm excited about.
Oh, that's great. I hear that.
A great club.
Yeah, I've heard that
Yeah.
too.
And I got some more Colorado dates, so I'll be in Boulder, Colorado in May.
Nice. Sounds great. Go see Adam. Go see me if you want, and go see the Cubs in about a week. We'll have the season preview coming up, and if you have any questions you want addressed, hit us up, holler at us on Twitter at Away Games Pod, and we will catch you soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Buy my merch. It's funny and silly and a good time.
Yeah, buy Adam's merch.